Okay, so what are forest disturbances? Forest disturbances are, in a general class, of effects caused by human beings in tropical forests. And they essentially include both the complete removal of forest cover, what we call clear cut, they include forest fires, and they include partial removal, selective removal, either selective removal of forests for timber harvesting or selective removing of trees for further deforestation later. We call this degradation. And the question here is, can the methods, which were, I hope you all were this morning, presented, and the current generation of radar detection methods, be able to measure near real-time forest disturbances? So why near real-time? Because near real-time is crucial for law enforcement. The more we are able to detect actions which are taking place, the easier it is to take actions to protect the planet's biodiversity. In other words, if we let people go there, cut the forest, and come back a year later, the damage is done. If we are able to see or to indicate from satellite data the effects, immediate effects of agents who are promoting change, we have a chance of sending law enforcement agencies which can effectively deter the agents or the, let's say, the poachers, those who are cutting the forests. So that is exactly the term we use in Brazil, deter. Deter is also in Portuguese the same thing, meaning that it is in English. Deter is a real-time system, which is a current global reference on forest disturbance monitoring. And deter has been going on for 20 years now, and it uses currently optical data and visual interpretation, uses data from satellites, Brazilian satellites, the CBUS, China-Brazil Earth Resources Satellite 4 and 4A, and the Amazonia 1 satellite, because there is in these three satellites a wide swath imager, which covers 800 kilometers with a 60-meter resolution. So essentially, you get a new image of Amazon every 2 days, which you cannot get currently under Sentinels. Now, the idea of enhancing this with Sentinel data comes from the work that Jonas Reicher has been doing for the last, I think, 10 years at least, in using Sentinel data for his red alert systems. And basically, he has tested in various environments. Currently, he is using Sentinel-1, which is a C-band satellite, which can capture some types of responses from the tropical canopy. It's different from, for example, the ALO satellite, which is L-band, and the new biomass satellite by the European Commission, which is P-band. But Sentinel is a very well-known satellite and provides data with very good frequency. So essentially, we're trying to see whether using the techniques that Jonas has developed, the so-called BTS algorithm, whether we could combine these with optical and SAR data to identify forest disturbances. Now, and this has been, as promised, as part of the Open Earth Monitor Cyber Infrastructure project, moved from a research lab point of view from Wageningen into an operational work, which is being operationalized in Brazil. So into the SIT system, which we are developing in Brazil with support from OEMC. So the input data is this WFI image, wide field imager, the EVI symbol, the EVI index, and the VH dataset, VH band from the Sentinel-1, which has been with radiometric and terrain corrected. And essentially, the technique which has been used, and there are similar techniques by Japan, by Juan Doblas, the whole technique becomes one of time series breaks. So essentially what one does in this set of techniques is to capture the time series of each point and to associate the time series, the evolution of a time series, with a break. And break in the sense that if something deviates too much from the so-called normal way of doing, then there is an action going on. And if there is sufficient evidence that this action is causing disturbance, what we call disturbance flag is produced. Now, in this work, most of the work, I think, from Johannes, he's using radar. But in this work, we are combining Sentinel-2 and AWS and CBERS with Sentinel-1. So the whole idea of this method, which was developed originally by Johannes, is what's called Bayes threshold signal method, Bayesian threshold signal method, which basically the idea is there is a signal associated with normal forest, there is a signal associated with forests. When the two signals cross, you start verifying if this repeats again. So there's what we call the tree flags. So if the signal starts growing up again, the signal of non-forest, oh, something's going on. And if it persists, you assign let's say, a measure of detected disturbance. So essentially, it's a time series, break in time series analysis method. We have selected one area where we have very detailed data sets from the year 2023 as a study area. The catch is a little bit different from normally when you see presentations of detection of forest disturbances by satellites. These detections tend to concentrate on certain types of disturbances and not others. Why am I talking this? Because we distinguish most of those who work with forest disturbances talk about disturbances as things like clear-cut deforestation. An area of forest is completely removed. Or scars of fire. So the clear-cut, how can pointer? Okay. Yeah, okay. So this is a very typical removal. This you can see in CBERS. This you see on a shadow image. Okay, so forest is being removed. And here, there's a big fire scar associated with the area. These are the two typical things you measure, but there's more to it. More to it because it may happen that some people have deforested the area and left some vegetation. The job had not been completed because of lack of money, of time, or something. See, here. Or they may have removed part of the canopy cover, but left some of the canopy cover. We call it this situation the degradation. Here, they may have cut part of the forest in lines because of timber harvesting. They may have cut orderly or disorderly. So the question being, how well do these techniques fare against these different types of forest cuts? Again, this is what we see. These are the responses. So what we see is the combination of optical and radar using the method proposed by Heischer is able usually to get very good responses from burnt scars and from clear cuts associated to deforestation. However, when we see selective logging, which is when people go there to extract some trees, the responses are not so good. So you see only parts of it, and in the degradation, they're also not complete. And vegetation clearance, also not so complete. But let's put some numbers into this. So We tested 3 combinations: optical, SAR, and texture, based on a recent paper which was published by Johannes' group. And here there are 2 measures that we use. The first measure is the temporal evaluation. What is a temporal evaluation? The temporal evaluation is the time between the first signal that is obtained by the time series analysis compared with the time which is flagged by the visual interpreter. The best solution here, the best situation here, was this combination of optical and SAR. You see some negative numbers. These negative numbers mean the following. When a fire scar is detected by the optical and SAR combination, it is detected 90 days before the actual detection by the visual interpreter. When a clear-cut deforestation signal when it is detected, it is detected 15 days earlier. So most of the detection occurs earlier than what the visual inspection, or the visual interpreter, finds, which is good. So this is, let's say, a good result. Shows that the automatic detection has the power to complement and, in theory, improve the current visual interpretation system. However, there comes the other side of the problem, which is if you take all the areas which were measured by fire scars, 920 hectares during the year, and the areas which were measured as fire scars by optical and SAR combination, you get similar results. If you measure the areas where there's clear-cut in deforestation, this one here, you get similar results. So 5,900 hectares, 6,200 hectares, okay? But when you look at the other measures that were interpreted by visual interpreters, for example, degradation, just one, back. Degradation. The visual interpreters identified 1,800 hectares of degradation, and the optical and SAR combination only half of it. And for the selective logging, the data is even not even worse. Geometric selective logging, 1,800 hectares against 73. So we can sum up this experiment by considering also the visual interpretation. So this is the kind of thing when you see the burn scar, the optical and SAR. So here's what the optical and SAR get, reasonable. The degradation, this is, the polygons are what the visual interpreter found, and the colored areas is what the different combinations of SAR, optical and SAR and texture. So you see, only for burn scars you get reasonable results with the optical and SAR. But for the disordered selective logging, and certainly for the degradation, the results are not really that good. So we conclude by stating the following. Optical and SAR data can detect forest disturbances of certain kinds. So they can detect really they are effective in detecting burn scars and clear-cut areas. So if you want to say, well, the SAR techniques can detect deforestation and or can be the current generation of, I would put this way, the current generation of alert systems, RED, the ones by Juan Doblas and the similar work, when they claim they can detect real-time deforestation, and real-time forest disturbances, they are referring to a specific type of disturbance, most likely burn scars and clear cuts. However, they are not as effective for measuring degradation selective logging, either disordered or geometric, nor vegetation clearance. Now, because the reason being is because these techniques are pixel-based, because the time series is a pixel-based time series, right? So, but of course, all disturbances are spatial. The guy doesn't go in there and deforest a tree. The guy goes there and deforests an area. But when it burns, they usually burn the whole area. All of the trees are burned, which means all of the pixels are burned. So even if I do a pixel by pixel, I still get a consistent area. The same goes for clear-cut deforestation. When I do a clear cut, I remove all the trees. So even if I go pixel by pixel, I still get a consistent response. However, when you do selective logging, you don't cut you cut one tree here, one tree there, one tree there. So there's a complex spatial pattern that outline the limits of pixel-based methods, such as the current generation, or in terms of vegetation, and certainly on the terms of degradation. You can get something, but you don't get everything, which means that there is a scientific question opening up the question as follows. What kind of methods do we need that would detect forest disturbance in tropical areas, which are much more selective spatially, which have more complex spatial patterns than burn scars and clear cuts? And this is, of course, the question that lays up. It's good to have scientific questions. It's good to see the techniques work for certain cases, and it's good to see that there is more work to be done in certain areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gilberto. This is the final talk of today also, so we have some time for questions. Let's start with Luca.
Yes, from this slide, actually, when you do selective logging, you cut just some of the trees, right? And so basically, for instance, if you look at the picture on the bottom left, you can see from satellites detection that basically they see some hole, but your polygon is much bigger. But for me, the polygon, the satellite is more accurate than the polygon, because the polygon is the whole area. But no, okay, it can, at the end, if you need to know how much forest is still there, satellite provide a better picture, no?
Well, the problem here is what we're not, the system and the whole RAD. RAD means Rapid Alert Disturbance Detection, okay? What you're discussing is not a technique for measuring deforested area. What you are measuring is a technique for rapid deforest disturbance. The assumption here is rapid measurement aid on deterrence of actions that people would take to go to the effective go to the field and avoid that more trees are cut. So in this sense, it's hard, very hard in a picture to convey what the analyst sees in his mind by analyzing. You see, here you have a complex mind, very trained to understand very subtle patterns. He may look at WFI, he may look at, for example, mixture models, he may look at things at the same time. He says, there's something here. So when he delimits an area, these are more or less the limits by which the guys are operating. These limits do not make a polygon to be counted. They make an area for the helicopter to go there. So that's the idea. So when I have selective logging, for example, or some vegetation clearance, I'm telling the law enforcement agency, well, there is something there. Or I'm telling the system, because this is done on a daily or almost daily basis, how effective is the system of detecting deforestation and deterring deforestation working. So if 1 month I have a lot of flags of areas, it means that the people are not working to get the bad guys. So this is real-time alert and law enforcement.
Well, but still satellites is not, of course, you don't see the full polygon because it basically the forests are still there, but still satellite can be used to make the people aware that in that area some cutting are
Yes,
happening.
this satellite
I think
makes the people
specifically,
aware.
is this example right? I mean, we can see
Well, but
here some thinning.
yes, you can see, but you see, the problem here is the extent. I mean, you can see, but it's not effective because here I say there is a large area being deforested. I mean, people prioritize, okay? So if I see a small, maybe if I just see small pixels, and that's my reality, the law enforcement doesn't go there because there are other places to go earlier. So by telling the extent of which they think people are acting, you more or less send the law enforcement agency a list of priorities. That's the idea. I mean, of course, I'm saying this is very hard, but this is what is done. And if you want to automatize the current system, you need to be able to go at least and address the problem, or to say, with what we say now, with the current set of techniques that we have, the problem cannot be addressed automatically. That's the truth.
There's one more question here. Please, let's hear.
Yeah, I mean, if I understood the comment, wouldn't you then not only also need, if you do your analysis where you compare the areas from what the manual people drew the polygon and what the satellite found, wouldn't you need to also draw a polygon around the pixels that the satellite found?
Well, the satellite doesn't draw a polygon around the whole area.
Yeah, but if you compare the size, wouldn't that be a better
Well,
comparison?
but again, we are trying, the whole issue here is, this is a very costly exercise and very important exercise. So if you want to replace an operational, here's the thing. If you want to replace an operational system by something automatic, you better be sure the automated system has a behavior as good as or better than what you're replacing. Just like driverless cars. You won't replace a driverless car for a more or less automatic driver. You have to replace a driverless car by someone who follows all the rules. So the benchmark is very high. You see, I think it's useful for you, which come from academia, to see what are the benchmarks we face on real life. 80% is not, 8% of something, sometimes it's not enough. It has to be perfect or almost perfect in order to work from the point of view of operations.
But the
Luca.
matter is not replacing. The matter can be also supporting. So basically, you can use this automatic for driving your visual.
Well, that's what we're discussing with the team. Currently, they say, it's this kind of information is not helping me. That's what I get back. This kind of information helps me to get the clear-cut areas. This kind of information helps me to get the clear-cut deforestation, but this kind of information is not helping me. So the client is the one who's always right?
Yeah, but you have to tell him that with this method, probably they can faster. They can do
Well,
Cut down the cost. If you tell him that they can cut down the cost, they will like it.
The cost is factored in. You see, Luca, I understand, and I get your point. And from the point of view of researcher, I agree to your point. But what I am saying, and I think this is a lesson for all of us, that when we move from research to operations, we move our goalposts differently. The evaluation almost good that we do, 80% right, 90% right, that we do in our papers, moves to different things. The client is always right. If he doesn't say he doesn't like it, he is the last word.
I partially agree because actually the problem here, but also we found the same in our application that typically people are used to consider what they are using in the past.
Right. But
And
so I have
it
to
doesn't
beat
mean that we need to make something 100% better because it's almost impossible. Everybody's made errors. But yeah, it's
No, but wait,
Okay,
wait,
okay, we're going
drive-
a bit in
No,
a circle.
wait, Luca, would you enter a car who's 90% good as driverless car? Yeah, someone tells you, this is a car, you're going to enter the car is driverless, but it's 90% accurate. Would you enter that car?
for this example, I agree with you, but this is not the same kind of thing.
Okay.
Stop.
It's it's enough.
Okay, so good disagreement.
Just one more question. You saw Felix. I think if you saw the talk, he uses this median vegetation height. It's more. It's not about optical or radar, but it's about the density of the trees.
Okay,
Basically.
the median vegetation. Now, okay, remember that we're doing this on a daily basis. So the median vegetation height, I would have to produce the median vegetation height on a weekly basis, not once, because this is happening on real time.
Okay.
So the guy has cut the land like last week. So if I have the median vegetation from last year, it doesn't help me. I need the median, in this case, the median vegetation.
Okay, I understand. So maybe your problem is actually really to have a very high resolution, like a 1 meter, like a planet, and then see individual trees disappearing.
Necessarily because planet with high resolution with RGB bands will not be necessarily the one I would go for. But again, planet is not free, okay? It costs money. So I'm not sure planet, there are people who are using planet. They're not getting better results,
Okay.
okay?
But there was one more question here.
Yeah, sorry.
Santiago.
One point that I didn't get.
Simone.
We define disturbance here has some anthropogenic intervention that reduces carbon uptake in a forest, right?
Right.
But there are also some natural conditions that do the same, like a beetle, for example.
Okay, fair
Pest.
enough.
And this method is able to distinguish between the
No,
two.
I mean, neither, but let's put it this way. This method is not able to distinguish. What distinguishes is the frequency of such actions in terms of beetles don't go in tropical forests. Beetles don't, I mean, this kind of beetle infestation is much more typical of a single crop forest like eucalyptus and pinus. It's certainly not the case in Brazil. In Congo, the tropical forest, you don't see that kind of infestation. So the problem does not appear simply because the kind of forest we have does not lend itself to this kind of contamination, which is much more prone for boreal forests or temperate forests.
And what about natural fires?
No, natural fires happen, but, well, okay, let's put it this way. A wet forest doesn't catch fire, okay? If a forest catches fire, it's because some oxygen is able to feed into the canopy. And the oxygen only goes through the canopy if you have removed some trees. And to have a fire on a tropical forest, a really dense natural tropical forest doesn't catch fire. It only catches fire if it's already degraded. And then it catches fire because there's enough space for the oxygen to consume.
Okay. Okay, we learn a lot, we understand, and I just want to say on the end that, again, I'm very proud of this project for connecting our Brazilian colleagues with the European institutions and going cross-continent. Unfortunately, as you know, European funding is to be spent on European citizens, which I find actually not a good strategy. I think science should be in front of the nation and passport. But we managed to connect nevertheless, and I see that it's helping us, the products we make, and you helped us a lot, Gilberto. Thank you so much for coming over and for helping and for bringing your spirit and your criticism and for provoking also. I think it was very, very helpful, and please also come to the final closing conference next year in Barcelona, most likely in September. Please come, we will find a way to get you there. So thank you one more time.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And thank you, Tom. Just to be clear, Tom deserves lots of thanks for bringing these two teams together, which enabled the cross-fertilization of experiences, which has been fantastic. Thank you, Tom, very much.
Thank you.